This is CBC Here and Now.
We're live at the Garrick Theatre in the heart of Bonavista. This is a special edition of Here and Now. We're marking the 30th anniversary of the cod moratorium. For the next month, we'll bring you lots of stories to mark that anniversary. Here in Bonavista, the fishery is really still the backbone. Over 400 people work at this fish plant. Generations of harvesters still make their living on the water, harvesting new lucrative species like snow crab. And tonight we're here at the Garrick Theatre to talk about the future and to bring you a special premiere of the CBC documentary Project Bonavista. Now in a few minutes I'll speak with someone who has really helped to reinvent Bonavista. Mayor John Norman is standing by. Hello, John.
Hello.
But first we're going to meet some of the people who live and work in Bonavista.
Hi, I'm Sylvie Mitford, and I own the Boreal Diner in Bonavista. I'm originally from the Yukon. I moved to Newfoundland over 10 years ago, and I've been operating the Boreal Diner for almost 7 seasons now. We lived in St. John's before this, and my husband had Fixed Coffee. We'd been out to Bonavista a few times before, like we came out for Roots, Rants and Roars a few years ago, and we were like really smitten with Bonavista when we drove around. And I'm a rural girl, like city is not really for me, so when we moved out here and we saw the landscape, we were like pretty motivated to move out of the city right away. So it was very slow when we first opened. We thought we were going to be a cafe and no one came in until it was lunchtime, and then they all disappeared again until supper time. So we quickly realized that food was where it was at. So we pivoted within the first week. I think we were open. The food has been getting better, and just the whole style of the restaurant has evolved over the years. We're really trying to just serve the flavor of the area, so whenever it's available, we're trying to serve the freshest seafood, and we try not to do too much anything, so you can actually taste. We pan fry our fish, and we source vegetables from a bunch of local farmers, and we source meat from a friend of mine who raises sheep, and we work with a few fishermen around to get the freshest, like lobster, crab, cod, etc. So, yeah.
Have you ever looked back?
To moving back to St. John's?
Yeah.
No. I've been there like 3 times since I moved out here, honestly. Like, I don't even miss it, so.
Hi, I'm Mark Fudge. I'm the owner of Bonavista Kombucha. I'm from Bonavista and I've lived here my entire life.
What is kombucha?
Well, kombucha is a fermented tea. So in the fermenting process, it's full of probiotics, very good for your gut health.
How do you make it?
You take something which is called a SCOBY, which is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, and you add it to brewed tea, and you let it ferment for a certain period of time.
How did you come up with this idea?
I actually had bad gut health myself, and instead of taking any pills or medication, I looked into a natural process and took off from there.
And how did you turn it into a business?
Well, after I started making it for a while, people started trying it, and people started actually wanting it because it started to make them feel better. So kind of just took off from there.
What is it about Bonavista that you love?
Well, you just look around, it's so beautiful here, and there's a lot of friendly people, and it's just a nice place to live.
What do you see for the future of your business and for you?
Well, hopefully we'll move into a bigger facility, and we're going to start shipping out of province, and hopefully it just keeps getting bigger from there.
Hi, my name is Claire McDonald. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm the owner of Kind Seas Studio and Shop. I'm a jewelry designer. I trained in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I work mostly in sterling silver. So here at the shop, I sell a lot of my own designs. I have my workshop sort of just in the back here of the shop. And then I've also brought in a bunch of other artists from Newfoundland, Atlantic Canada, and a couple places beyond to just sort of create a space that has sort of a cohesive feel, a lot of work inspired by the ocean.
You're from Halifax. How did you end up in Bonavista?
Well, my mom's side of the family is from Newfoundland, St. John's in particular. So growing up, I spent quite a bit of time coming back and forth to Newfoundland. And then in 2016, I just came to Bonavista on a visit, and I just couldn't shake it from my mind. So since then, I've been sort of thinking about moving here, and in April, I finally took the plunge. So I've been here since April.
What is it about Bonavista that draws you here?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, in terms of my work specifically, I just find it like a really inspiring place. A lot of my designs are inspired by rocks and the ocean. But it also, I love the community here. There's quite a nice community of young entrepreneurs and artists. And that was one of the things that really attracted me to this place.
So many stories. I also spoke with Peter Burt of the Newfoundland Salt Company, and talk about salt of the earth. He is just so proud to be making a go of it here at home. We'll have that conversation tomorrow night on Here and Now. But for now, let's speak with Mayor John Norman. So, Mayor Norman, we just heard from a bunch of people who have chosen Bonavista to launch their business. How does that make you feel when you hear all those stories?
Well, of course, I grew up here. I was a child during the moratorium, and I grew up in a town that felt like it was dying. So to see and help support a lot of these entrepreneurs come to Bonavista, launch their businesses, expand their businesses, it's very, very positive.
Mm-hmm. And you're in politics. You obviously have a vision for Bonavista. Why did you want to get into politics and to try to help your town?
Want to get into politics? I had to get into politics.
And why did you have to get into politics?
I felt right from the point when I moved back to Bonavista after university 13 years ago now, there was just so much potential here, and I wanted to have a role, not necessarily a leadership role, but a role at the time to reinvigorate the community. And I started a small company. It got bigger, we got investors, and we've done a fair bit of work in the community now. And the work at the town hall is the same. I started as a town councillor with not the intention to be mayor, and here we are.
So much change, such a vibrant community. How did you go about, making that kind of vision a reality with the people who live here, and to convince people to invest in Bonavista?
That took time. That was a lot of work, and the first investments were mine. When we moved back here, we started by purchasing a few properties, fixing a couple of properties up, and the hope of starting a small company. And from there, investors came on side, and multiple investors, and we've got a fairly sizable company now. And we work with a lot of young entrepreneurs, helping them enhance and launch their businesses. It's all very encouraging.
Yeah, so many entrepreneurs here, so many interesting businesses. What is it about Bonavista you think that draws people here?
I think it's the authenticity to place. And I don't want to go off on an academic tangent, but I really feel the trend of belonging of especially younger people, and I'm sure a lot of the entrepreneurs you've seen today. It's interesting to see this is not only a lot of entrepreneurship in a rural area, but a lot of younger entrepreneurs moving to a rural area, a bit unusual. And they want to be connected to a place. And there's a real sense of community here. There's a real positive vibe. And there are so many challenges in the world today. Who doesn't want a bit of positivity and be a part of something great happening in the province?
And also the fishery, that's still something that's happening here. We were down on the wharf today. So much activity happening down there. How important is that industry to Bonavista?
Well, the fishery is why Bonavista exists. It's the reason why it was settled in the 1600s. It's the reason why most people are here today. And it has a great overlay with the tourism and culture and heritage industries, the arts industries that are developing here. It's the reason why we're here. It's the reason we are who we are. And we understand our history. And that helps us on many, many levels. And there are so many tie-overs from one sector to another. Who would have dreamt that even 5 years ago, you would have a salt manufacturer on Main Street shipping internationally, or a kombuchery, or chocolatiers, and the list goes on and on. Tourism is a great added sector to the region, but we're a rural town that now exports goods around the planet. And that's really exciting. And that all started with the fishery. This was an export center. We were shipping out salt cod hundreds of years ago. Now we ship out crab and we ship out salt and a few other things.
And we were down on the wharf today speaking with some folks who work in the fishing industry, and lots of people down there, multi-generations of people who work in that industry. And we'll talk more about how the fishery is still the backbone of Bonavista. That's coming up. We've been talking a lot about the new Bonavista, how it's reinvented itself since the moratorium in 1992. We've spoken with lots of new business owners in the town, but we can't forget the other industry here, of course, the fishery, which has also changed a lot over the past 30 years. Joining me now is Reg Butler, someone who has been involved in the fishery here in Bonavista for most of your life. Can you tell us a bit about the enterprise you have going here?
Well, this summer for me is number 50. Be 50 years involved with the
You don't look like it.
Oh, thank you very much. With the grey shirt shows. But anyhow, yeah, this, like I said, we've fishing all my life, and back from the small boat, me and my father and my brothers. And then we, like I said, with the collapse and with the moratorium as we come up through the years, is that we had to either invest or get out. And we went and we took the chances and we invested. And as you can see, what we got here today, that's what we invested in for the crab fishery, which is a good sustainable fishery, and kind of solve us from it. But the fishery and the cod fishery, like, it's slowly coming back. But it's coming back when we manage it right. That we, oh, God willing, to come back. But like I said, as of this now, we got tied up a lot of money into boats. But that's it. And we got, me and my brother own it there now. One it was involved as well. I'd passed away, but me and my other brother own it, and we got our sons involved with it. So it's still a family tradition. I've been probably about the fourth generation, of the fishery. And my sons, they're the fifth generation of fishermen coming online. So like I said, we do good. We did last year. We had a good year, and there's not always sunshine, like the fellows say, but it was this was a good year last year, and this year as well, with a bit of the tangle up and ups and downs and everything, you know.
Yeah, you look around here, there's lots of activity. It really looks like a vibrant industry here in Bonavista. Can you talk a bit about how the fishing industry has changed here over the years?
Well, like one time there was a lot of people really into the fishery. One time there'd be boats out in the harbour anchored off years ago, when I and people, but you have a job, you get a place to tie your boats on, you know. But now a lot of people, like you said, are out of the fishery retiring as well, and a lot of, like, there's a few new ones coming in, and you can see, like, with the boats, it's bigger boats and more expensive boats, and you know what I mean, because the reason for this is that we got to go off farther. And it's like, but when we had the smaller boats, we can't go out off not long ways. With them, we got to invest bigger. You can go on bigger. You got to go, you know, and that's so. And everybody's doing good. And what's saying, and the town is growing. The town is growing with everything, and with the tourism as well is good in our town. Good advertisement and stuff and everything, and bringing a lot of tourism in our town. But like I said, the big issue too. Don't forget, the backbone of our Bonavista town is the fishery.
Still.
Still the fishery. I don't care what they say. It is still the backbone is the fishery. With our fishermen and our plant workers, that's the backbone of Bonavista. Because I'm telling you, you had to close up the plant or take the fishery out of Bonavista. I don't think we would survive fully, and we had to, for the regard of tourism. We would some. But when you're talking, like, say, with our fishermen and everybody and all those plant workers, and over 400 something plant workers, I think, is there now. It's good. It's a good business, and God willing, it keeps going that way.
It used to be that this was it, but now there are more industries happening, more businesses. It seems like everything is kind of coming together nicely. Bonavista is settling into something new.
Yes, that's right. There's, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of we're open for change. Some stuff coming in here in Bonavista, businesses as well, and that, you know, but still, like you said, this is the main. I still can't change. This is our main industry is our fishery, and with our fishermen and our plant workers. But like I said, it is striving to a point, and there's lots of things on the go here, and there's a whole town. There's history, a lot of history here. There's a lot of history. Like when I look around sometimes, like at the new modern plant and everything is there now. When I fished, say even 50 years ago, started, like what was there right back then, a lot of fishermen, and 90% of them are gone now and stuff, you know. And now we're just a few of us who can remember that. Hey, it was our living there now, ain't it? But Bonavista is good, good people, and like I said, wonderful town to represent. I got to tell you right now.
Reg Butler, thank you so much for this. Really appreciate your time.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for coming to Bonavista, and all the best to you.
And yes, you did hear that right. Reg has been in the fishery for 50 years. He was 9 years old when he started, and he's not the only one in his family. He has two sons who work in the fishery, plus his brother and his brother's two sons. He talked about how important the fish plant is. Over 400 people working there, plus harvesters. All together, he says, probably around 600 people in Bonavista work in the fishery. So still a very, very important industry. So coming up after the break, we'll have more of our special coverage live in Bonavista, and we'll have the special CBC documentary Project Bonavista that's coming up. Welcome back to this special edition of Here and Now. We're turning now to a part of Newfoundland and Labrador that's found momentum after the moratorium. Bonavista has managed to reinvent its rural economy. Arts, culture, tourism have been huge bait for that, and the Bonavista Biennale is a really big part of that as well. The CBC's Lindsay Bird and Mark Cumby brings us this feature documentary called Project Bonavista. Here it is.
I think a lot of people are scared of contemporary art because they're always trying to ask the question of what is it, rather than just trusting their senses.
I think a lot of people have a weird first impression of art sometimes where, you know, they don't quite understand it. And I think that's like a perfectly okay thing to experience.
Because it's about contemporary art, not necessarily always pleasing, but always challenging.
It's everywhere. It's outdoors, it's in historic spaces, it's in people's homes.
There's pieces just from the community where someone has painted all their boulders like really bright colors, right? They're not part of the Biennale, but it's just like that aesthetic, like they're trying something new in their life and the landscape.
The Biennale is a festival that happens every 2 years, presents contemporary art all around the Bonavista Peninsula. 100-kilometer loop, generally of 20 to 25 different projects, new contemporary art or installations that are responding to historical sites, communities, and all the different sort of fascinating intersections on the peninsula.
I've always been connected to Bonavista. This was my hometown. Of course, most people want to be proud of their hometowns. And I grew up during the moratorium, and I grew up seeing people move away and seeing houses boarded up. It was depressing, it was bothersome.
After the cob moratorium, there was a heaviness around the community and a lot of people left.
About 19,000 fishermen and fish plant workers are out of work.
The entire area is off limits to cod fishing.
To ensure that the northern cod survives as a species. The proposed compensation is hardly more than welfare.
Through high school and those early university years, there were some interesting not-for-profit works that began in the community. The Garrick Theatre reopened, Newfoundland's oldest theatre. There was streetscape development, multi-million-dollar investments from the municipal, provincial, and federal levels of government.
A year ago today, Bonavista had the Queen. It had the Matthew landing as it finished recreating Cabot's historic voyage.
Expecting probably to see more tourists this summer, like over a longer period of time.
We've had tourists ever since what, May month?
Yes.
Coming in, looking at it, what they're doing with her.
There's a big resurgence of people coming back and younger families moving back, and whether or not it's people living here all year long or having summer homes, there's just a lot more popularity and a lot more interest in the town, so that's really nice to see.
Bonavista has over 1,000 heritage buildings. There's no town on the island outside of St. John's that comes even close to 1,000 heritage buildings. Now, many of them were dilapidated, abandoned, what have you, but they were assets. And for me, with a business mind, though no formal training in business, I thought there was an opportunity there to restore those buildings, both commercial and residential, attract new people, attract new business, and use those assets to re-energize the community, and it seems to be working.
My name is Morgan Parnham, and I'm the Creative Director of Bonavista Living, Bonavista Creative. We are very big in supporting the arts community, and we love to use all our buildings for cultural events.
Bonavista Living have been a huge, fantastic support, and they have helped to build the stage in which the pool is housed and to install the suspended installation, which is hung at like 15 foot, like right up in the rafters. Without them, I couldn't have put this installation together at all. It would have been a much smaller pared down version, but we've been able to go for like the bigger, more impressive, immersive experience. It's an installation that kind of confronts the participant with their own mortality, but hopefully in an uplifting way. So it's an installation of approximately 2,000 orbs hanging above a pool of water, in which orbs also floating and are sunk to the bottom. The orbs themselves, each one has an organic like specimen inside it. Sometimes it's different flora, things that I've found and cast in the resin. There's also been donations from the community, mementos from loved ones that people have sent me. Also, the insectarium gave me some of their deceased insects to put inside, which is pretty cool. And so these animals and this organic life are kind of frozen in this state of death. So they're on the one hand very beautiful, they almost look like eggs that are about to hatch, and so they kind of evoke the sense of life about to happen, and so it's this kind of convergence of life and death in one sort of installation. And then on the opposite wall there's a drawing of sort of a pile of dead leaves and plants that turn into growing plant matter, and plants kind of growing up the wall and up the drawing. I want people to think about their own mortality, but hopefully, ultimately, in an uplifting way, to see it as part of the cycle of life and death, to see it as something that's natural, in the contemplation of it, to kind of seize the moments that we have now and make the most of our lives.
My name is Gerald Beaulieu, and I'm a visual artist based in Prince Edward Island, and we're in Upper Amherst Cove, where I'm installing my work Extinction for the Bonavista Biennale. Extinction is essentially a life-size Albertosaurus dinosaur skeleton, all painted black to look like it's coated in oil. And it'll be operating, moving up and down like an oil pump jack. So they shared the same anatomy. The pump jacks had a head and a spine and legs, and I thought they made a good hybrid, and my dinosaur will be drinking out of an oil drum of crude oil. I've been doing works on environmental issues for a number of years, so I just saw the images and I kept thinking, I wonder if it would work, you know, and I had done a couple of kinetic sculptures, so I was interested in replicating that. I like the senses of sound and motion as well as just the visual, and it also, dealing with climate change, it was, the idea of extinction is that if you don't adapt, that's the inevitable reality, and that's the challenge we face today. People think it's one of probably the premier festivals in the country now, just because how novel it is, its approach to community interaction and the buy-in from community, and there's great artists here.
I was for many years director of Memorial University's art galleries, so we were always thinking about audiences. And at the gallery, we used to take shows right across the province. We never reached the Bonavista Peninsula, and so I met an artist out here, Catherine Baudet. You know, she had a vision of putting art in unconventional places. It was an opportunity for Newfoundland artists to show on a kind of national platform, or to create a national platform. I think the communities certainly were puzzled by the art, or much of it.
Well, I would think that a lot of the people here that live here probably don't see it the same as the people who come from away to see it, you know, because they're more used to contemporary art. I think it would be more of the realistic stuff that they would go in for, you know. I don't think they ever had those colors on the house, for sure, you know, but it looks lovely. You know, it's like the old wallpaper. I don't think the colors were, but the patterns are in the old wallpaper. I remember seeing patterns like that.
When I've been in the peninsula area before, and I've just been really intrigued by the layers of wallpaper that have come apart, and they reveal the different histories and the different stories of the different people that have lived in those houses.
I see a lot of people looking, and especially those trees up there in the beach that's backward, upside down. Jeez, it's unbelievable, the people that looks. And when I first seen that, I said, they must be there for birds nesting. I said, well, it was a crazy crowd going around, I said.
People respond to contemporary art. People will travel to see it. They'll stay in their communities. They will know something about their culture. You know, I don't think we've necessarily caused, I presume we've encouraged, you know, some of these new enterprises and young people moving in. I think the Union House Arts project is quite directly attributable. There will be, I think, more and more craftspeople probably moving this way.
People that go to places that they enjoy on vacation, a very small percentage of them will actually return and to live there and to start businesses and so on. We came, my wife and I, Peggy, we came here on holiday, and then we bought a house, and then we built an inn. And we now have something like 4,000 or 5,000 people staying here every year. We have created 25 jobs. People were leaving when we came. Bonavista, I think, had 5,000 people. I think it's now only 3,600 or something like that. However, we have now got a resurgence of people coming onto the peninsula, and some of these are seasonal people. They're here for 3 or 4 or 5 months. Others are here year-round. But in a sense, what was happening to rural Newfoundland was the out-migration of intellectual capital. People went and got a university degree and went and got a job on the mainland or in the States or wherever. I think we've now got this sort of intellectual capital coming back here, and I think the Biennale is an example of that.
Sardinia is an immersive experience for the viewer. Yeah, I just want people to sort of imagine like what it would be like to be inside a school of sardines. The idea of Sardinia as an imaginary place where there is this abundance. There are still these teeming schools of fish. I've had my eye on Bonavista for a few years because of its history of fishery, and there are strong parallels, obviously, with cod and collapse and hardships, and the impact that has on culture.
This installation was really to reflect about our consumption and relationship to electricity, and often how electricity is delivered very elegantly to our houses and we take it for granted. Consumption of electricity is also contaminating waters around the world, and how it affects specifically First Nations communities in particular. So this piece was really about that, trying to create an installation that is very elegant, but also can have some social and political conversation around it, and just have people start, having a dialogue and reflection around it.
really a nighttime work, so that it's reflective in nature. I'm painting it, and so people with lights or lights from cars on the highway will be able to light it up and sort of animate the work.
Weird how everything kind of goes flat on the corner. Like that comes out right and goes back, and it just goes right across. You can hardly see the corner anymore. Hopefully there'll be all kinds of reactions from people, you know, like wonder, where does this come from, what's happening here? But really, I think the nature of it is, hopefully, it's going to be sort of a fleeting kind of feeling, like a very temporal, ephemeral kind of work, whereby it looks a little bit maybe ghostly or like an apparition, just based on the way the light plays with its surface. You know, I was thinking during the pandemic that really people really didn't have that ability to get away and experience nature so much. You know, we were all stuck in our houses and we couldn't travel from place to place. And so this is a kind of a tribute to that, whereby it's sort of, it feels hopefully like an ever-present kind of an image, a lasting image of the camper that feels like, or maybe symbolizes, you know, our desire to get away.
There are so many little nooks and crannies to experience and explore here, and it's like things you wouldn't expect to find. Me not being from here, like I first came here, and the first week I was here, I literally walked around Bonavista for like 3 hours. And I was just like, I just have to like see what's around. Stumbling across like the bicycle cafe just up the road.
I'm kind of really hidden away, as you can tell, and it's hard for people to find me, but when they do find me, they're very happy. But there's I think two installations, one on each side of me, or is that 3, where when people come and they see the installation, speak to the artist, then they happen upon the cafe, and then it's kind of like a little bonus. So it certainly has brought a lot more visibility.
Well, I just graduated from Grenfell. I just did my BFA. And I think this has just kind of been, I've just really jumped in the water here. And, you know, like just finishing my undergrad and like having these opportunities, it's so important because I've just really made a lot of really great connections while I've been out here. I think this community is really good at uplifting each other and supporting each other in their work, and I'm just really glad to be a part of that. And you know, it's nice to see like supporting Robin and installing her work. You know, it's a support that you often get reflected back.
My name is Robin Love, and my piece is called Unhistoric Acts. We are installing this black fabric on one of the fish flakes that's right near the Mock Beggar plantation. And the black fabric is embroidered with names of women from the 1935 census. So from all over the Bonavista Peninsula, but mainly focused on this part of the peninsula. In the course of doing some research for a different project, I started to realize that the women in the communities did the vast majority of the work on the fish flakes, processing the cod, in addition to all their other duties. But this is not something that has really ever been really honored or even acknowledged, in fact. It was very hard to find out this information. There's hundreds of books written about the men out on the water, but there's very little written about what women did as part of the inshore fishery. So I thought it was an opportunity to kind of draw attention to this and honor their labor. Indigenous women got assimilated into the settler culture, and their names were often changed, and often to Mary. If you think about Mary March, that wasn't her name, but that was her name that was given to her as part of a sort of enforced assimilation. So, imperfect though it may be, it was a way to just acknowledge that the history of this land is very complex, and the history of women on this land is complex.
Under the flag of England, John Cabot set sail from Bristol in search of the Orient. What he found was Newfoundland.
That landfall then, 500 years ago, marked the beginning of European settlement of North America, and it shaped the development of Canada and of this province. This year, we're celebrating 500 years of Cabot's arrival and all that that entails.
From Cape Bonavista to the coast of Labrador, this rugged land of beauty is yours to explore. John Cabot and the Matthew is how it all began, and it's ours to discover now this Newfoundland.
Well, it means a great lot. It means a lot to see the Cabot here celebrate 500 years. Yeah.
The rebirth of Newfoundland.
Rebirth, yeah, that's true.
The rebirth of Newfoundland.
We love John Cabot.
I happened to see the John Cabot statue, and I immediately was drawn to wanting to do some sort of intervention with it. I didn't want to do anything that would necessarily harm the statue, because I can understand the value within the community to have, you know, this important landmark. And I understand Newfoundland as being someone who has strong connections here. I didn't want to be that person who comes along and like defaces it in any way, or, you know, tries to tear it down in this moment where a lot of colonial statues are being torn down. But I was thinking I would love to erase it from the landscape while I'm here. And so I was thinking it would be quite interesting to create this mound of mulch that would cover completely the statue, not harming it, not being invasive, but just covering the statue.
There was concern based on Bonavista
our municipal and our regional branding around discovery and the history of exploration that some were not overly comfortable with the idea of covering the statue. The town was really unable to commit to that space in the end, and communicated that months ago to the Biennale organization, but offered other options for locations in the community, and the artist accepted one of those options. I think Long Beach is where he's doing his installation now.
Through a series of decisions that I wasn't a part of, the town had initially accepted and said that I could do this project, and then reneged or revoked my permission to do the mulch pile with only about 4 weeks before the biennial opened. So I had to recalibrate and come up with a new project. They presented this specific site. The installation is actually pulling from text by John Day, who was one of the people on the Matthew as John Cabot's expedition to North America, and specifically looking at any information that may have revealed that there were people here before. I'm just trying to think about various ways of activating the beach, considering this particular site as a potential site for Indigenous recognition. You know, thinking about, well, if landfall is a recognition of European colonization, what are ways in which we can honor pre-colonial human histories and activities? And so I was thinking, well, if I've been displaced with my work from the landfall site and I've been given this site, well, then maybe I should embrace that and think about it as a potential place where human activity happened.
I think Logan is an Indigenous artist, as someone who's a Canadian research chair at the University of Waterloo in Indigenous issues, is someone who's thinking deeply, and also as a Newfoundlander, someone who grew up on island and is aware of some of the stories that we tell ourselves. And I think Logan's thinking really sensitively about some of those histories and the place, Bonavista in particular, and some of the historical frameworks that have developed to promote some of those ideas, but I think in certain ways they are stories that we tell ourselves, or that have led to some complacency around things, or that become ingrained ideas that aren't always, that deserve to be questioned, that deserve to be thought through in this moment of national reckoning with a colonial history.
I think we're all for expansion of understanding and learning opportunities within our history, and the mutual history of those that are of European descent and those that are of Indigenous descent, and how they may blend, and how there may be misunderstandings that we may not be aware of that may come out through some of these pieces and installations throughout the regions. I believe strongly in public art and exposing everyone from every age group in the community to public art. I think it really gives the population in the region and the visitor a different exposure and a different way to look at the world around them. And I think we all need to do that from time to time.
That's the job of the artist. I mean, it's the whole idea is to get the mind engaged in perhaps another way of thinking or seeing something. And contemporary art particularly does that. I think people sometimes are a bit disappointed and say, well, it's not cute or lovely to look at. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to get you to thinking. And we all like the idea of thinking a little differently and thinking of ourselves as being innovators and things like that. And art should stimulate some of that.
All of us who've been involved in this have believed art has a great deal of power and makes people think in different ways. It's relevant to life today.
Sometimes it's hard to get the art world to take notice of what we're doing here, and so I think having big festivals like this that have a local and a national and an international reach is really, really important and integral for us.
I've been sort of in awe of this Biennale.
People are really curious, coming by, asking questions. I feel like there's a real embrace of this project.
It's the juxtaposition of extremes. You have this bucolic surrounding, and then you have somebody that has a whole other concept about color, shape, and form.
Gives people a chance to explore the peninsula. For people that haven't been here before, it's like it's a way of, you know, charting a course.
Bonavista is one of those rural anomalies where you have a high density of creative people. You have a lot of creators moving in. You have a lot of young families and thus a lot of energy. So you have a real capture of the whole spectrum here, from the very young to the very old, to the very conservative, to a growing LGBTQ community. So it's quite diverse and, in my mind, a very healthy town compared to maybe where we were as a community a number of years ago, socioeconomically depressed, very reliant on a single sector, and now we've diversified greatly. So definitely head in the right direction.
Fishermen have 7 days to remove their gear.
30 years ago,
the lowest level of cod stocks ever recorded.
The cod moratorium. Everything changed.
There's nothing left here anymore.
Generations later, life is still changing. For people, communities, and the ocean. The moratorium, July, on CBC Newfoundland and Labrador.
And you've been watching Project Bonavista. Our thanks to the CBC's Lindsay Bird and Mark Humby for bringing us that wonderful documentary. And before we finish up, I just wanted to grab Melissa Boyce. Now, Melissa, you're the general manager here at the Garrick Theatre, but you've also been involved in so many projects in Bonavista. You gave us a tour today of this historic theatre. Before we finish up, can you just tell us a little bit about where we are right now?
Okay, well, the Garrick Theatre was a project of the Bonavista Historic Townscape Foundation. It was one of its main restoration and redevelopment projects. And we have a Garrick Summer Series every year, a complete, full, awesome lineup of live performance. We also do year-round cinema as well.
So you can see movies here?
You can, yes, yeah. So it's very exciting. We have the Garrick Annex as well as an intermission space, and also like a smaller, more intimate venue for live performance as well. And we are currently starting off a new project as an initiative of the Historic Townscape Foundation, the Bridge House.
Yes.
So we're super excited about that one.
That's really special. Tell us a little bit about the Bridge House project.
Well, the Bridge House project is very important to Bonavista. It is one of the oldest residential structures in Newfoundland, to which a date can be confirmed, and it was built between 1811 and 1814. So it's very exciting, a lot of work ahead of us, but with great planning and a great team. We're super excited about it. We can't wait to see it completed.
Yes, and you gave us a tour of this building and also took us down to have a look at that Bridge House, and what a big project that is. My goodness, it's stripping it down to the studs really to try to build it back up again. And what's going to happen with it once it is brought back to life?
That's very exciting. There will be interpretation in the house, in the and the second story. And it will be interpretation of the history of the house, the history of the area. It will highlight the architecture of the building itself, as well as some of the architecture of other properties in Bonavista.
Right. Thank you so much, Liz. I hate to cut you off, but we're almost out of time. Thank you so much for letting us here in this space, the Garrick Theatre, this beautiful space. And thank you so much for having us here in Bonavista. Thank you. And so lots more to come in the coming days. We'll have lots of stories. Thanks for joining us tonight.